Hi friends, welcome to QApedia and this is our blog qapedia.com. Today the topic that we are going to discuss is severity and priority, and the subtopic that we will discuss today are what is severity and priority, what is severity, what is priority, example of severity and priority, importance of severity and priority, difference between severity and priority, and then summary of the session and then question for the session. So let's start. Severity and priority. What is severity and priority? Severity and priority are very important aspects of a defect, and these are used to categorize and prioritize the issues or the defects that we find during testing. Okay. Now, what is severity? The severity of a defect means impact or seriousness of the defect on the functionality of the software or the application or system. So the functionality of the software, how much impacted because of defect, that is called severity. Severity indicates how seriously the defect has affected the functionality of software and to what extent is it going to disrupt the normal operation. And there are some different levels of severity: highest, high, medium, low. Now, what is priority? Priority of a defect means how urgent or fast do we want the defect to be fixed. Okay, so if we want the defect to be fast or urgent, so based on that we define the priority of a defect. Now, priority indicates the importance or urgency of resolving a defect. So, because of priority, we decide that how much important the defect is or how much urgent the defect is. How fast do we want to resolve it? Okay, and priority of defect impacts business and brand image and other monetary factors which are related to business. Okay, now you see, severity will impact the functionality. Okay, and priority will impact business and brand image. So this is the difference between these two things, severity and priority. There are different levels of priority, again highest, high, medium, low. Now let's see example of severity and priority. So let's say the first example, high severity, high priority defect. So when the system crashes completely, suppose you are not able to launch application, you are not able to log into some application. So this type of defect comes under high severity and high priority defect. So why are we calling it a high severity? Because it has impacted the functionality. Okay, it has impacted the launch functionality and login functionality. So because functionality is affected, that's why severity comes. And how much did it affect the functionality? It has affected the functionality badly. Okay, and we are not, because we are not able to launch the application or we are not able to log in to the application, and because functionality is affected badly, that's why it is high severity. Okay, that's why it is high severity defect. Now why are we calling it a high priority defect? Now we have to see which functionality has been impacted. Okay, the functionality which is impacted, it is launch and login functionality. Now launch and login functionality is very important for business. Okay, it needs to be fixed urgently because the business will be down. Now because business will be down, business is impacted, that's why it is a high priority defect. Okay, if business is down, that's why we are calling it high priority defect. So if suppose the business is down and end user will not be able to launch the application or will not be able to log into the application, then they might move to some other business. They might move to some other application. So this kind of defect or scenario is an example of high severity and high priority defect. Now let's see the example of low severity and high priority defect. Okay, so what will be a low severity and high priority defect? When you see that there is a website, Flipkart website, and it is showing a logo of Amazon, or you say vice versa happens, Amazon website will show the logo of Flipkart instead of their own logo. So what will happen? this is going to impact the brand of the company, brand image of the company. It does not impact the application, it does not impact the functionality of the system, but it is going to impact the brand of the company. So that's why it is a low severity defect. But because we have to fix it urgently, because it is impacting the brand of the company, which is the most important thing is business, and that's why we call it a high priority defect. And this kind of scenario is an example of low severity and high priority defect. Then high severity and low priority defect. So let's take an example where a customer has placed an order but did not like it. Okay. Now customer did not like, so what will customer do? He will exchange the order. Okay, customer is exchanged, but did not like the exchange item also. So what will happen? Customer will try to return the item. But what is happening? That customer is not able to return the exchange item, exchange order. So what will we say? If we think of severity, then it should be a high severity issue because the return functionality is broken. We are not able to perform return. So it is very high severity. But when we talk about the priority, then what are the chances for somebody to return an exchange item? Okay, somebody is placing order, then placing an exchange order, and then placing return on the exchange order. So this type of scenario chances are very less. Okay, and because the chances are very less, then we don't think that there will be many customers who will be doing it. So it becomes a low priority defect because not much customers will be impacted, and business also will not be impacted much. This kind of scenario is an example of high severity and low priority defect. Then low severity and low priority defect. Now these type of defects are cosmetic defects. Okay, they will have very minimal impact on the functionality, very minimal impact on the business as well, or in the on the brand image as well. So let's say we have a product in an e-commerce website, and the product description says t-shirt, t-shirt instead of t-shirt. But what will happen? This kind of typo error will not impact the functionality or the business because the customer is definitely going to order the shirt. It doesn't matter. It doesn't impact him. It doesn't impact much to the business. Now, same way, if suppose the product alignment is not proper, and suppose images are displayed bigger than the expected or smaller than the expected, and those type of defects also come under this category because it will not impact the functionality and it will not impact the business also. Okay, so these are some examples of severity and priority defects. Now, importance of severity and priority. When we assign severity and priority levels to a defect, then it becomes very easy for testing team, developer, and other stakeholders to manage the project level activities. So, if we want to manage the project level activities, then we should assign the severity and priority levels to a defect so that it will become very easy for testing team, developers, and other stakeholders to manage those activities. Now, there are some benefits of severity and priority. The first one is effective issue management. So when we assign severity and priority levels to a defect, then it becomes very easy to prioritize a defect and then provide the resolution based on the priority and severity level. Okay, so this way the defect management becomes very effective because of severity and priority. Then resource allocation. So when we assign severity and priority levels to a defect, then testing teams and development teams can allocate their limited resource efficiently. Okay, critical defects with high severity and priority are given immediate attention so that they can be resolved first. Okay, this way our resource allocation also work efficiently because of assigning severity and priority levels. Risk mitigation. Okay, now severity and priority will allow organizations to mitigate their risk which is associated with the software defect. Critical defects with high severity may pose significant risk to the system's functionality and security and user experience. So, if suppose they are addressed on resolved on time, then the risk can be reduced easily. Okay. So, any critical defect which is having high severity, because of that, we will have some risk to the system, and the functionality also would be on risk, and the security issue also might come, or the user experience may not be good. So at that time, what will happen? Those defects should be addressed properly and it should be resolved on time. And this way, the risk can be reduced. And then business impact assessment. We can evaluate our business impact because of a priority and severity level defect. So when we assign severity and priority levels to a defect, then we can identify which defect is having what impact on the functionality and on the business. Okay, so because of the severity and priority level, we can understand the impact of the defect on the functionality and on the business. So what will happen? We can, when we will prioritize the high priority defects that directly affects the critical functionalities of business operation, then organizations can ensure their core process remain functional with minimize disruption to end user. Okay, so we can give high priority to high priority defect, and then we can ensure that those should be resolved as soon as possible, so that our core process should remain functional and there should be minimum disruption to the end user. Then decision making. When we assign severity and priority levels to a defect, then it will help us in making informed decision, okay, during this software development lifecycle process. So if suppose we are having more critical issues, then we can decide that we should not release our product now, and we should resolve them first, and then only we should be releasing our product. Okay, so our product launch and everything, we have to decide based on our severity and priority level defects. Okay, if suppose we have more defect, we will not launch our product. Then communication and collaboration. So severity and priority levels provide a common language for communication and collaboration. Okay, so this severity and priority levels work as a language as well. Okay, and this is a language for communication and collaboration between testers, developers, and stakeholders. So what happens because of this? They can communicate with each other on which defects should be addressed and which defect should be addressed after one defect is resolved. And because of this, the communication becomes very effective. Okay. Now let's see. So these are the main importance of severity and priority. Now let's see the difference between severity and priority. So priority of a defect means how urgent or fast do we want the defect to be fixed. Okay, so priority is all about urgency, and it is related to the time. How fast do we want it to be resolved? Severity. Severity of a defect means impact or the seriousness of the defect on the functionality of the software. Okay, so how much so how damage or how much impact is having on the functionality. So severity depends on the functionality. Priority indicates the importance and urgency of resolving the defect. Okay, and then severity indicates how seriously the defect has affected the functionality of the software. Okay, the priority is all about the urgency of resolving, and this is all about the functionality. Priority of the defects impact business, brand image, and other things, but severity impacts the functionality and the stability of an application. Okay, then priority of defect is decided in collaboration with the manager and client. So software tester cannot directly decide the priority, but in case of severity, software tester can decide the software severity level of a defect because they know about the functionality well. Then priority value of the defect might change with time, because if suppose we have less time, then we provide high priority to a defect, but if we have more time to fix, then we can provide a low priority to a defect. But the severity value will not change with time because it is depending on the functionality. If the functionality is badly affected, it is going to be always high severity defect. Okay, now let's see the summary of the session. We have discussed below topics today in our session. What is severity of a defect? What is priority of a defect? Examples of severity and priority, importance of severity and priority, and then difference between severity and priority. Now, question for the session. So, give an example of each high priority and high severity, high priority, low severity, then low severity, low priority, and high severity, low priority defect from online banking application. Okay, so that's it for the session. Thank you very much, guys. And if you want to get the notes for the session, then you can go to this particular blog.